Protection of Freedom of Speech on the Internet by Kara Hanlon. This research paper will analyze the extent to which the First Amendment right of freedom of speech is protected on the Internet. The current issue concerns a blogger named Harold Turner. He was charged with felony inciting injury to people and misdemeanor threatening for threatening officials on his blog. As a reaction to state legislation, he advised his readers to take up arms against the officials. He also wrote that the government officials should obey the Constitution or die. During the trial, the blogger argued that his speech was protected under the First Amendment because it did not result in any harm. The prosecution, on the other hand, argued that the officials felt threatened and laid emphasis on the effect that the words have on people. The blogger was acquitted for insufficient evidence. The bar to prove such an offense is set too high by the court. Thus, after the trial, even the jurors expressed that although they knew that the blogger was not innocent and what he did was outrageous, they could not hold him responsible due to insufficient evidence. The issue involved in this case is the protection awarded to speech on the Internet, where it's in the form of threats or in the form of hate speech. The law applicable in this regard is the First Amendment. It provides that the Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. In the United States, under the First Amendment to the Constitution, online hate speech enjoys the same protections as any other form of speech. There is no legislation that specifically regulates threats or hate speech on the Internet. Thus, the government cannot restrict online speech unless that speech falls within an unprotected category. The unprotected category includes speech that is a true threat or speech that incites imminent lawless action. However, there are a small handful of cases involving threats on the Internet that warrant our attention here. Among these are, firstly, the case of Jake Baker. In this case, the defendant wrote stories about how he would sexually assault, torture, and kill a girl from his class. He was acquitted on the basis that the woman was not identified with the specificity required under the First Amendment, and thus his threat did not constitute a true threat. The second case is the Nuremberg File case, where a website that gave addresses of abortion providers was held to fall under unprotected speech. The reasoning provided by the court was that threatening an individual could not be allowed. Another case that was successful was HUD versus Wilson. In this case, a website which threatened a woman was barred from mentioning the woman ever on the site, and the woman was also allowed to recover damages. These are the only few instances where threats have been taken to court and the courts have awarded relief. In most of the cases, like the one at hand, the First Amendment right overpowers all other rights. The threshold set by the courts where protected speech becomes unprotected is extremely high and difficult to prove. The required standard is that the speaker of the words must actually intend to carry out the threat, or a reasonable person must feel that he will actually carry out the threat. I believe that the Internet is one of the most efficient forms of delivering information, and it needs to be regulated. Our lives are largely dependent on the Internet, thus separating virtual life from real is not possible anymore. Therefore, being threatened by something on the Internet can lead to mental disturbance just like getting threatened in real life. Another point that is of importance is that such threats have an influence on other people. Even if the initiator of these threats does not intend to carry them out, anyone who is more inclined to violence might want to. Keeping all of this in view, I think speech on the Internet needs to be regulated. I hope my presentation helped in advancing your knowledge with regards to freedom of speech on the Internet. Thank you.